Welcome, everybody. My name is Mary Berle. I'm the chief educator here at the museum, and we're so happy that you're here. And I have to use, in order for you to record, we have to use the mic. Is that, feels a little funny with such an intimate group, but okay, so I'm going to use the mic. We're really delighted today to welcome Michelle Lopez, who is the executive director of the Berkshire Immigrant Center, and Toni Buckley, who serves in the development office at BCC, but is also a major community activist and one of the founders of the Berkshire Immigrant Stories Project, which is the basis for work we started this year with Toni and her troops. That's probably not the best choice of words, for the interactive that is upstairs showing Berkshire Immigrant Stories. So the Finding Home, how many of you have had a chance to see the Finding Home exhibit? So, okay. So upstairs we have 4 artists who have recorded their personal immigration journeys. Juji Morales, James McMullen, David Macaulay, and Francis Jetter. And so one of the opportunities that we felt with this exhibit, where each of these are very personal stories, they're American stories, we thought it would be interesting to try to build some programming that connects local immigration stories and opportunities for all of us to get to know our own community better as part of the work with this exhibit. So that's where this program is coming from. And we are really delighted to have both Michelle and Toni, who are extraordinary people, with us. So the bigger frame is, what can we learn when we look at other people's stories? What do we need to remember and why? And how can making art and looking at art help us reflect on and better understand our own and each other's stories? I think before we get started introducing Michelle and Toni, I also want to just acknowledge that Lorena Deuce is in the audience. Lorena, can you? So I think the program kind of shifted a bit with who's here. So Lorena is a caseworker at the Berkshire Immigrant Center and has deep and vast knowledge of what it's like to be an immigrant in our community. And Erica Milkey is also in the audience. And Erica, actually, I'm going to reveal a bit about myself. When I was an administrator in the public school district, I took a course from Erica on teaching English language learners. But Erica teaches Spanish all over the community, and you're also a community activist, or used to teach Spanish all over the community. And also I think you have a pulse on what it's like to be new here. Are there any of the rest of you working in capacities that we should know about? Because part of this will be a larger conversation. So,
Claudia?
Yes, I do teach English language.
She was my husband's first teacher here in the Berkshires.
Oh, how wonderful. Okay. So you also have connections to the Berkshire Immigrant Center. Wonderful. Thank you for being here. I think, should we start by asking you, Toni, about the Berkshire Immigrant Stories Project, what it was and what you learned and why it was important to you?
Okay, so Berkshire Immigrant Stories was a grant-funded program by Mass Humanities and the NEH, which started at Berkshire Community College in the fall of 2016. I was actually not a founder. I was hired about a year later by BCC as the coordinator of the program. I had heard about it, I think, through the Berkshire Immigrant Center. I don't quite remember, in January of 2017, and had already shared my own story with that project. And then when in the fall I joined as program coordinator. Berkshire Immigrant Stories is mainly a collaboration between BCC and the Tenement Museum on the Lower East Side in Manhattan, which I recommend to everybody who hasn't seen it. go and look at Francis Jetter's show upstairs and then go to the Lower East Side and experience those sweatshops exactly the way they were back then. The Tenement Museum started an online gallery, Story Your Object. And the Berkshire Immigrant Stories are a group page on that online gallery where they ask people to photograph an object that you either brought from your home country or that reminds you of your own immigration story or your family story, or that's just a symbol for your story. You post that object on the gallery and you tell your story around it. So when I started with the Immigrant Stories project, I started organizing, actually I started connecting. I started connecting organizations in the Berkshires that work with immigrants. I started off with a luncheon where I just invited people. I think we had 25, 30 people from the Berkshires that work with or for immigrants just come together and talk. And then we organized opportunities for immigrants to share their stories. We did the first workshop right here over there in the classroom where we had ESOL students and their tutors come in. They got a little tour of the galleries, and then we came together down here and started writing our own stories. And we continued doing that until June 2018 when our funding ended. At that point, we weren't sure if we were able to continue it. We still haven't gotten any more funding, but it is still alive. And it's not just alive this year through the Norman Rockwell Museum. Again, we get to enter the next phase. And with Mary's and Rich's help, we organized 2 recording days at BCC where we had 15 people come in. Those were community members, students from the college, staff and faculty, at least 5, 6, or 7 from the original Berkshire Immigrant Stories. People that shared their story came in and we recorded those stories on video. You can see them upstairs. And that all happened, again, through collaboration here in the Berkshires with other organizations without any additional funding. The next thing is in line for this summer, where the Immigrant Stories will enter a next little phase. Within that time, we had 44 people share their stories. A lot of amazing, powerful, moving stories. A lot of different reasons of why people came here. A lot of very moving stories. I brought a few. We can listen to a couple later if we want. And yeah.
And I think what stands out for you across story as things people face as they come to the Berkshires?
So I think two big things that are totally connected are better life for my children and education. The chance, opportunity for education. And of course always the opportunity for a better life. That's what people hope to get when they come here. Yeah.
Thank you. And so many of those stories are upstairs now in the second iteration. And we asked people, what was your journey? What does home mean to you? And what would you like the future to be like? And so please go upstairs and look at those. We're also working with high school students. Last year we tried we worked. Last year's winter exhibit was a fantasy exhibit, and we worked with the artist Gregory Mann and high school students to do a radio play at the Mehewi in the winter. This year we're going to work with these four artist journeys and the Immigrant Stories and high school students, and we'll do a performance March 13th at the Mehewi, which will be free for the community. So please mark your calendars. So today we're not going to talk as much about the stories themselves, but more about this larger surround. And this is an image of Juji Morales. This is her walking from Texas or from Mexico to Texas with her 2-year-old, with her young infant son. And so her work is also upstairs. So Michelle, you are the executive director of the Berkshire Immigrant Center. and have come fairly recently.
Yes, 7 months.
Hitting the ground running. And I need to add that both Michelle and Toni are very significant, and Lorena, collaborators with the museum on the naturalization ceremonies that we host. We've hosted them for 10 years, 2 last year, and we have 2 coming up this year on April 8th and October 27th. So we love to have witnesses for that, and it's a really important day for the museum, and also felt like a really, with this long-standing collaboration, wonderful to have new ways to collaborate with this exhibit. So can you tell us a little bit about the Berkshire Immigration Center, what your work is in the community, and what your hopes are for the future?
Yeah. So the Berkshire Immigrant Center started as a program of the Jewish Federation of the Berkshires in 1997. We were founded as the New American Coalition Center, basically helping a lot of Russian Jews and other Eastern Europeans settle here in the Berkshires. That program lasted for almost 4 years, and we grew rapidly. So much that the Jewish Federation said, okay, you guys need to find your own space, and you have so many clients. We went from 100 to 200 clients within those first 3 years. We outgrew the space, literally. And we became the Berkshire Immigrant Center. We now see over 700 people from over 80 countries. We mainly do family-based assistance for immigration law. So all of our caseworkers are Department of Justice certified, which I found in my short stint in the Berkshires that very few people understand that we provide legal services. Lorena and our other caseworker, Maureen Blenner-Hassett, are basically attorneys, immigration attorneys. And the reason why that is immigration law is the only you are not given a court, court-ordered attorney if you can't afford one. Is immigration. You're not guaranteed a lawyer. And of course we know, or I hope that we know, what happens when you don't have any type of advocate. You go through deportation proceedings if you're in that situation. So Lorena and Maureen are Department of Justice certified to be able to assist our clients. So family-based immigration services are fiancé visas, marriage visas, family reunification, work authorization, green cards, and naturalization, so becoming a U.S. citizen, which is what our goal is for everybody. And I think probably the most joyous day for all of us who work at the Berkshire Immigrant Center is to see those clients go through the naturalization ceremony. I had a woman come up to me at an event in November, and she said, "You don't know me, I was sworn in before you started, but my swearing in ceremony was the second best day of my life after my wedding." And I said, "Really, where are you from?" She said, "I'm from the UK." And I said, "Wow, that's not usually a reaction that we get from someone from the UK. Yeah. And she said, "I feel so a part of the democratic process here in the United States, something that I don't feel when I was at home." She is so excited to be able to fulfill her civic duties, especially in this upcoming election, which is really just a powerful message that we received.
Do you have some anecdotes about ways, let's see, opportunities and challenges that you experiences?
Challenges about the tasks that you go through weeks or months of daily life. Going to the RMV is a perfect example. We advocate for clients all the time with the RMV.
Department of Motor.
Yes, I'm New York State. I'm sorry, I should have said DMV. Right, it's a terrible, tumultuous. Imagine going to such an entity you may not speak in the English language, and someone is at this entrance asking you for this paperwork that sometimes when they're asking you, they're not using the correct verbiage, the correct title of something. For example, in September, I walked in with my husband. My husband is an immigrant from Cuba. I accompanied him, and they said, we need your U.S. certificate of citizenship. And he looked at me like, oh my God, I can't get my license. And I said, no, I'm sorry, I think you mean his green card? And they said, oh yeah, that'll work too. But can you imagine if an immigrant was going in and people using the correct language in schools? Lorena spoke to a local school last month to faculty. Know that, asking about the immigration up through high school, and what the status is, their guardian here. So there's a lot to learn, and we never are trying to make somebody feel bad for not knowing or for using incorrect language or for approaching somebody and not understanding where that person's coming from culturally. We're just trying to educate. So that's kind of the other hand of what the Berkshire Immigrant Center does. We work with clients and help them with the immigration process and going through legal applications, and then also advocacy and education for the greater community.
You did that for me. I did not use, of an outside attorney or anything to get the open hours on Wednesday mornings at the Berkshire Immigrant Center, and your pre-predecessor, Hillary Green, was there, and she helped me over a few months to, fill out all the paperwork. My husband is sitting there. He's an American citizen, born here. It's insane, all that paperwork. It is like, for me, I just came here, second language. It's very difficult to even understand, but it is for somebody, who grew up here and it's the first language, also almost impossible to really understand everything and do it right. So I think I had to go 2 or 3 times. I maybe spent $75 to get, somebody who really knows how this works to tell me, you're good, it's okay, it's all filled out the right way, we can send this in and it will be okay. And I got my green card, It worked out.
How did you hear about the center?
I think that somebody in the community told me about it. And then my husband's dad drove me there because, if you don't have a valid license for this country, you cannot drive. And picked me up again. And yeah, Hillary helped me and made me feel a little safer, a little better about it. I was still freaking out for the next 7 months until I knew that it was happening. But I definitely felt like I had done everything I could.
Both of you are bringing up this really important idea that policy is in my previous life, I was principal and to the school, and when I started, I think the time between a family moving into the community and enrolling the child in school was between 8 and 12 weeks, because it took that long for families to navigate getting the vaccinations they needed, getting the birth certificates in order, and but with coordination with VIM and local pediatricians, we were able to shrink that to about 48 hours. And it took a lot of work, but it was really worthwhile. And I think this is exactly what you're talking about in terms of trying to break down the barriers that are significant. And I wonder, Lorena, do you want to add to this? I'm sure you have some wonderful stories. And I might need you to come up and take this mic so that we can capture it. But
I didn't even tell Mary you were going to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the great thing about the Berkshire County and this community is that so many people want to help you. So it is a little bit hard to find, but when you find it, you can find a support group that's going to be there for you, helping you through the entire process. So for a lot of our clients, it is difficult to find their birth certificates, and it's such an important document. Some other clients don't even have a passport, have never had one. The process with the driver's license is terrible. It's scary. I actually went there recently to renew the registration of my car. And I heard this person asking several people about their certificate of naturalization. And the third time I had to get up and say, you are asking the wrong question. You need to ask them for proof of status in the country. That's what you need to say. Because, you know, people were turning around. They were like, but I don't know, but I don't know, but I don't know. So there is a lot of times where, you know, people get scared about it and they just don't want to go back. So that's another thing that we do a lot. We advocate for our clients. I went with a client to the R&B. I went with her to be able to talk for her because she was so scared. And she was actually, this is one of my favorite clients. She is now a United States citizen, but she was from the UK. And she's been here for 50 years and never wanted to apply for citizenship. Then her husband passed away. And she went to renew her driver's license and noticed that her green card had expired 10 years ago, and she had an old one, and she never needed to show her status. So she came to our office and said, I need to renew my green card because my driver's license expires next month. And I said, you know what, you're eligible to apply for citizenship. Let's do that instead. But she was super scared. She said that she was dreaming every night that ICE will show up to her house. She didn't want to go anywhere, and she decided that she wanted to renew her green card first. And that's a lot of money. If you want to renew your green card, that's $540. And then if you want to apply for citizenship, it's $725. And that's going up maybe in a few weeks.
By 60%.
But yes. So, you know, she decided she wanted to renew her green card, and with the receipt notice that she got, I told her, you can go to the R&B and show them that and renew your driver's license. She went there and they said, no, you're not a green card holder if you don't have your proper green card. So I went with her. And I told the person, she's a permanent resident. She can definitely do it with this. You can check on your database that she can renew her driver's license. And we stayed there for 2 hours, and I asked to talk to the manager, and then another supervisor came, and they decided that she could renew her driver's license. So she renewed her driver's license and then decided to go through all the process to apply for citizenship, and she was actually sworn in, and what was it? It was it
June?
June. The June ceremony, she was sworn in here. And she goes around telling people, I've met people here and at the office that say, oh my gosh, she talks about you all the time, and she's so grateful, and she's always sending people here. So, you know, some people, even with the status, they feel scared. If you don't know the correct language, then you are not going to be able to advocate for yourself. So that's one thing that we are very proud of, and very proud of this community too. So many people, you know, English teachers too, that are just advocating for the clients too, for their students.
We have 5 free.
So, well, there's 2 other things. I want to open it up to questions, but there's a couple things I want to cover before that. One, Michelle, could you just share a little bit about what your annual budget is in your stats and sort of how, I think I'm always astonished, as I've gotten to know Berkshire Immigrant Center better, how much they do with almost nothing in the scheme of things. So I think that's important. And then, Toni, I would also like you to speak a little bit about your work with the Multicultural Center at BCC.
So 2 years ago in 2017, our annual budget was $170,000. with 2 full-time people and 3 part-time people. It's currently $350,000 because we hired a part-time development coordinator, which she's done incredible things, which is why we're at $350,000. Now 3 of us are full-time and 3 of us are part-time, and we have 4 regular weekly volunteers, one of them being my predecessor's predecessor, Hillary Green, who still sees clients every Thursday morning. She still keeps up with her Department of Justice certification, which for me speaks volumes about the type of organization BIC is. The fact that our first director still wants to work there and work there for free is incredible. So yes, $350,000 is our budget with 728 clients seen last fiscal year. Yeah.
I work at Berkshire Community College, the only community college in the Berkshires and within a radius of an hour drive. So BCC is, I would say, the major opportunity for people in the county to change the narrative of their life, which attracts a large number of students with minority background. We have 24% students that have a minority background. And in 2007, I want to say, my wonderful coworker and an amazing community activist here in the Berkshires, Eleanor Velez, started the Multicultural Student Service Organization, where she really wanted to create a space for students that are away from home to have a home and a family. And that's what it is. We call it MSSO. MSSO meets every week, and 4 of the students from our current MSSO are represented in the stories upstairs. You will see what amazing young people we have. And MSSO is, like I said, it's a group, it's a club, it's a student club where students that have either no family around here or that are international students, that are immigrant students, also white students born and raised in the Berkshires that want to get involved and are looking for a community, a really, really strong community, find that within MSSO. Things that we do are, that Eleanor started, is, for example, a pre-Thanksgiving dinner. You know, when you're not American, when you didn't grow up here, Thanksgiving, first of all, maybe your family is not around, it's a family holiday, but at the same time, it's a very, very American holiday that's not celebrated anywhere else. And it either doesn't really mean anything to you, or you don't really know what it is. So Eleanor started the night before Thanksgiving, this beautiful, now with like 40, 50 people, students and alumni and staff, a potluck dinner at a church in Lenox, where everybody brings food together. You have tacos, you have, you have Middle Eastern food, you have Indian food, you have 3 big turkeys. You have a little bit of everything. You come together and you celebrate that family holiday that you might have not grown up with your extended family together. And it's really this support network for our students with multicultural background. It is also the group that I call when I have a great opportunity where, for example, an amazing artist wants to come in and talk to students or create something with students. So this group is always there, is always engaged, and has a lot of opportunities that, in this case, others don't necessarily get. We had 3 artists come in last year that worked with MSSO, created sculptures, had conversations. Yeah, it's the home away from home at BCC.
It's a remarkable organization. So just handing it over, each of you came today for a reason, and we're really curious what your questions are.
What happens in the summertime? Is that organization still providing Support for students?
That organization doesn't follow really the semester. I mean, the weekly meetings are not happening, but if it's winter break, if it's holiday break, they meet up and go sledding on the hill on campus. I know around Indigenous Peoples Day, it's a holiday, a Monday. Our MSSO alumni from Boston and from everywhere come, and they go on a hike together. So there are a lot of traditions that are happening through the summer, through any break. I have one beautiful example, the former last year's president of the MSSO. She is an alum. She graduated in 2018 from BCC. She became one of my closest friends, and when she was struggling at UMass Amherst, she came back to BCC to ask for help, and we helped her. And she's now, through help of the Immigrant Center, finally getting her documents, getting her employment documents, through the support of faculty at BCC, the president at the college. Everybody was coming together with the Immigrant Center to help this MSSO alum who had moved on, you know, but they know we're still there, and no matter what time of the year, it's their home. I have this one beautiful story of an MSSO alum he grew up in Zambia. His parents passed away when he was a little kid, and he moved all around the world through a volunteer organization, volunteering and helping with this organization I know he was in Germany and Switzerland for a time, in the UK, and ended up in the Berkshires and came to BCC, and that was finally where he says he found his home. He graduated with high honors. He sat on the Board of Higher Education of Massachusetts as the student representative. Then he went on to St. Rose College for his bachelor, to Columbia for his master's, went to Alaska for a year to work with children with mental health issues, and now has a full scholarship at Alabama for his PhD.
Yeah, thanks. I actually have two questions, if that's okay. Unrelated. The first is, obviously the Berkshires are beautiful and wonderful. I'm just curious if there's anything in particular that serves to attract immigrants here that perhaps is unique from other areas. And the second question unrelated to that is, I'm curious in light of our current political climate, if the kinds of, you described the hassles at the RMV, but has the hassle factor gone up? I know the expenses have gone up, but I'm just curious if the hassle factor has gone up in terms of the barriers, whatever you want to call it, that the immigrants face.
I think in terms of why certain immigrants gravitate towards the Berkshires, I like to say we have, the typical anchor story. So one person comes here because a cousin of their friends back home moved here 10 years ago. They found a job pretty easily. They like the Berkshires. It's more quiet. Nowadays, hopefully it continues. ICE doesn't really tend to come around the Berkshires. They tend to gravitate more towards cities because they don't have the funding to be sending officers out here. So it feels like a safe place. It feels like a welcoming place. And because that cousin's friend from their home country said, this person's doing really well, then one more person comes, then they bring their children over, then they bring their parents over, and so on and so forth. I've learned recently that a large number of our clients from Ghana and Ivory Coast come here to work at places like the Hillcrest Education Center, Kripalu, lots of different nursing homes, and different types of institutions, schools, etc., mainly in healthcare. I don't know about students.
I think it's similar. I think our students are from really around the world, and I think one of those typical stories, a little bit typical, is of TK that you can hear upstairs. where he is from Myanmar, Burma, and it is a very unsafe place. So his parents sent him away. He has an uncle here in the Berkshires, and they sent him here to be with his uncle. His uncle is taking care of him. He lives with him. He feeds him. He goes to the community college. He's getting education. His parents don't want him to come back. They're not. He wants to go back home, but they don't allow him to come back home because he has a safe place here with a relative. The other one that's up there in the stories is Jimmy, who was born and raised, or born in France. He is from Vietnam. His aunt lives in Lanesboro. So it's an opportunity. It's the education he can get here is of a different level than what he could get at home. And he's talking about that he doesn't know yet if he wants to stay here for a good job or go back to be with his family. But it seems that over the last decades, people continue to come here, and so their families join them.
Word of mouth is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And just to talk about us for a quick second,
Yes.
the three of us
Yes.
are here because we fell in love, or my husband is here because I got this job here, and he's from Cuba, and these ladies are from other countries and fell in love, and their significant others are from here or work here, live here. So that's also love is a big factor as well.
Yeah, I wanted to add to his question, another
Yeah.
answer to his question.
So
Yeah.
go and then. So I was a elementary school principal in Great Barrington until spring of 2018, and I have two things that I can say about your second question. One is that during the election, there was one debate where Hillary Clinton was very articulate about being for Dreamers legislation, and the next day I had numerous families coming into my office, closing the door and sort of cheering, like, we're going to be okay, we're going to be safe, this is all so great, like very poignant. And then following the election, we saw a very big spike in transients. So families coming for a short time and then leaving. And we also did have ICE raids in Great Barrington, close to the school. And we made our school committee was courageous and created a policy that was not going to happen, that nobody in the schools was going to welcome agents. And that was something that we had the power to define. So that was the school principal perspective. But I think mostly there was a level of fear that just became very apparent. And at a time when families need stability, there was less of it.
Yeah, I think the emotional stress that went up after the election is enormous. Just myself thinking, I did not drive a car for 7 months because I was hearing they were deporting people for driving without valid license. I did have an international license, but my visa wasn't valid anymore for a while. I was applying for my green card, so I was practically out of status. And I was terrified. And I was lucky that I had, my husband's family around to literally drive me around. But I was so afraid that I could get pulled over.
There is a lot of fear. I sit in my office every day. We are always telling clients, if you're not sure about something, just come talk to us. Because obviously what you see in the news and what you hear from people is very scary, and it's not always the truth. So we tell clients, just come and talk to us, ask us, because we'll give you the right advice. We'll tell you what's going on. But another thing that I've seen with this environment is that more and more people want to become citizens. And I've seen it in our clients that have been here for 50 and 60 years and never ever thought about applying for citizenship because they were fine the way they were. Usually clients from the UK, they feel like they don't want to lose their citizenship. So they are coming to our office and saying, it's time because I have to vote, I have to make the difference. So yes, there's a lot of fear, but there's also a lot more people wanting to do something different and help out.
So my two comments were in response to his first question about why do people come here. 10 or 15 years ago, I was working teaching ESL to adults, and I would go to these Department of Education statewide meetings, and I was shocked to learn that the economy and the population of the Berkshires was considered really differently than most other areas of the state, in that we're similar to like beach resort communities. We have the same challenges and opportunities of these tourist economies. And so that was one eye-opener for me when I first started working in that position, because I was just thinking like we're just this rural spot that happens to have some cultural things and good restaurants, but we have the same challenges both with and opportunities with immigration, but it's also something that affects like drug use and stuff like that. So that's one of the factors that makes the Berkshires unique. But also, I was just thinking about this because of today's Sunday paper was talking about the census.
Thank you for bringing
that. The population in the Berkshires is going down. So places like Hillcrest, you know, there are real opportunities for employment that doesn't exist everywhere as our population goes down. Yeah, well, housing as a whole.
Another monster. Yes.
And just now that we've moved on to the second part of that question, my son is half Mexican, but he's a U.S. citizen. But after that election at Muddy Brook, I remember he was in 3rd grade, and his friends were all worried that he was going to have to leave because Trump had won. It was really powerful. I hadn't thought that my son or his friends would be affected as they were. They were worried he was going to be on the other side of some wall. The kids were like, we're going to miss Sebastian when they build that wall.
Yes.
So I passed out copies of sample questions that are asked during the citizenship exam. So you have to get 6 out of 10 answers correct, and the officers can choose any 10 of the 100 sample questions. So these are from USCIS, the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services online portal. Our citizenship classes at the Berkshire Immigrant Center are free. And other wonderful ESOL courses are offered at BCC, at 18 Degrees, PALC, Pittsfield's Adult Learning Center, Literacy Network, Literacy Volunteers. So we are really lucky that in Berkshire County we have so many free options available to our immigrant population to be able to study these questions. But and these questions, although a lot of our clients spend a year studying these questions with their teacher, these questions can be asked backwards. If something is not pronounced correctly, we're finding that people are failing. The officers have also switched to answering questions on the tablets instead of writing answers down with pencil and paper, and a lot of our older clients are not able to, they've never used a tablet before, they're not comfortable, so now we're finding funding to be able to buy tablets so that our students can practice on them. So these are just small examples of the terrible frustrations that our clients go through. And like Lorena said, the uptick in people applying for naturalization, it's big for our center, but can you imagine what it's like for Boston? It means that people are waiting now like a year to be able to apply or get their citizenship exam administered, and then they wait longer to be sworn in. So everything is just totally backlogged.
Yeah, there was a time when you could memorize the exam and pass it, and that time is over.
With the election coming up, what are the efforts in the Berkshires to help new citizens become? I know I was at the naturalization ceremony last June to see a friend become a citizen. And you did a voter registration there, but,
yes.
But what else will be happening, and what kind of help do you need from the community to help register?
That's wonderful. So recently I spoke to the Knesset Israel Social Action Committee, they have put together a group of volunteers that want to assist with the census and then also assist with voter registration. So voter registration at the naturalization ceremony is done by our board chair, Rose Ellis, and her husband. Because there are only 20 to 25 new citizens, it's not something that takes that long amount of time, but it is something that we can help with at the Immigrant Center with our caseworkers. Is something that we talk about in our different workshops. So you're always more than welcome to contact us and be involved in any of our workshops and talk to people. We're this spring we just got funding from the Massachusetts Census Equity Fund to help people fill out the census. So that's a big thing. You know, even if you're not a citizen, it doesn't matter. This is something that is something you should be a part of and a way for you to be visible and be heard before you can even register to vote. So that's a big way that you would be able to help our immigrant clients. Yeah.
Any other questions?
You said there was a time when you could just memorize. How has this changed? It's taking the exam for citizenship.
So you still have to learn the 100 questions. That's only one part of the exam. But basically what they want to see is that you can speak basic English. But what we've seen is that it changes depending on the officer that it's there with you. So some officers are very friendly and they will be okay with your accent and when you making little mistakes. But some other officers are not that friendly and they will ask for more. You know, they get picky. So you have to learn those questions, but you need to also be able to write and read in English. So they're gonna ask you to write a sentence on the tablet, and they're also gonna ask you to read one or more sentences in English too.
Wasn't part of the exam before?
It used to be, but they will be, in the past they would say like, okay, you passed the questions, you're fine, we're not going to do anything else. But now they are doing each part of the exam mandatorily. So, and also a big part of the exam is that you have an application, which is the N400, and that application is 20 pages long. And from those 20 pages, 7 of them have crazy questions that they have to ask everybody. If you're a terrorist, if you have a friend who's a Nazi, if you've ever smuggled anybody into the country, if you've ever been deported, if you've ever lied to a government official, there's too many questions there. And they're gonna ask you each of them expecting that you're going to answer no. But what we've seen lately too is that there's one question that is, if you have a title of nobility, and you say no, and then they go back and ask you, okay, but what does nobility mean? Because they want to know that you understand those questions you're saying no to. So we are telling clients that they need to be even more prepared, because one client can go in and in 5 minutes they're out and they said it was super easy. Another client that I had recently that has been here since 1992, she came back and said the officer wouldn't listen to what I had to say and gave me this letter, and now we are trying to provide a bunch of evidence that is not relevant, but that's what they were asking. So we're fighting and we're advocating for her because it is completely unfair, but since everything is in immigration is discretional, then it means that the officer can say, no, you're denied, and they don't have to give any other explanation.
And I think what Mary meant by you used to be able to memorize the questions is they would ask them exactly how they're asked on the sheet, and now they're asking them backwards. They're saying, you know, what is the Constitution, or, you know, what does the cabinet do, instead of asking it the way that it's written. They're asking them.
So I asked because I was wondering how on earth my mother passed the exam when she's still, after all these years in this country. I immigrated from the former Republic of Yugoslavia with my mother, and she passed the exam, but still to this day, after 40 plus years in this country, she still speaks broken English, not just the thick accent, and we'll just revert to our native language with family. And but you know, the opportunities, she came here, she worked in a factory with other immigrants. There really wasn't the opportunities like you guys are providing now to learn the language. She had to work, she had to support family, and that was just it. So I was just I'm just amazed. I got my citizenship. I'm a naturalized citizen as well, but through my mother, because she did that. She memorized these questions. And I'm looking at them going, oh my God, I couldn't have this conversation with her right now because she just would not understand any of this.
It was different times. They're definitely
Yeah.
not easy.
I know.
Yeah.
This may be not a big deal for people who are dealing with this, but so what I've noticed is that as of January 1st, and you're speaking about the Registry of Motor Vehicles.
Yeah.
So as of January 1st, anyone who's renewing their license has to apply for what's called a real ID, which is a federally mandated ID. The requirements for identity, even if you're not someone with immigration matters to be concerned with, is actually quite considerable. I mean, my wife just had to renew, and she was asking me for all these different things that I was rather surprised at that we had to gather for her. So
Like
I'm just
8
curious.
forms of
I was
ID.
just curious. I imagine that would compound the complexity for anyone who's applying for a driver's license who has to deal with these things around citizenship. So I'm just curious, have you started to encounter any of that already?
Yeah, I went through this past summer. It was daunting for me. And I born here says, I couldn't believe it. Just to be clear, it's not required, but it will be required to either have a passport or the real ID to get on a plane as of January 1st, 2021.
Well, Massachusetts is now making it anybody, as of January 1st, anyone whose license is renewed is now becoming a real ID.
Is that right? Because I had a choice. So it's new as of this year?
Yeah.
I knew it, but like, it is
Yeah.
very.
Luckily, and definitely have Lorena speak to the challenges our clients are facing, but luckily a local representative of Pittsfield, Tricia Farley-Bouvier, is behind the green light bill, so passing this bill in Massachusetts to allow for anybody, despite their status, to apply for a driver's license, and it's something that we hope will be passed. New York has already passed the green light bill, Vermont has, Connecticut has, so unfortunately as of right now, it's still difficult for our clients who are Mass residents to, you know, depending on their status, apply for a license. And my advice to them would be, you should apply in another state, because unfortunately Massachusetts, it's not a viable option for some people right now, but in terms of client struggles.
Yeah, the requirements are crazy, even for someone who is a U.S. citizen. And we've had U.S. citizen clients coming in asking us, can you help me fill out this form? Can you tell me what this means? Why are they requiring 3 proof of addresses and things like that? Yes, all our clients are struggling with that. And the other thing is that if, for example, you have a green card who is about to expire, you cannot renew your driver's license, because the requirement, because of the new real ID, is that you need to prove that you have a status of a year or more. So someone whose green card is expiring, they're gonna say, no, you need to renew your green card first, and then you can come. So that's the first thing they need to deal with. And renewing a green card takes about 10 months before you can get it. So what they're forcing you to...
Before they extend it, but then for
But
me
they
right
extend it-
now,
yeah.
mine is extended for 18 months.
Yeah.
It takes 19 months, up to 19 months, until I actually get my new green card.
Yes.
And then you can apply to be a citizen, so why, it's crazy.
So
Crazy.
there are way more issues than only trying to find the documents to prove that you are a Massachusetts resident and that you can apply for your driver's license. I think what we've been doing, and we've worked together with Mira, is that we are trying to have conversations with the RMV, because we've noticed that not all the offices are on the same page, and not all the clerks are on the same page. So if you go today, they will ask you for something, but if tomorrow it's a different clerk, then they will ask you for something different. So there's a lot of struggle. You definitely will need it next year if you want to board a plane with your driver's license, or if you want to enter a federal building. If you're not going to do any of those 2 things, you should still be okay, but definitely this is gonna move to everybody needs a real ID, so it is tough.
But I think I'm going to leave here today. We've talked about the legislative level with laws that are sometimes really crazy and unnecessary, in my opinion, to third graders knowing about the wall and being worried about their friend. So what will it take to heal? That's sort of the
That's
question
a
that
wonderful
I want to
question.
think about.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Besides, some changes.
I think the answer is different for everybody, right? It's about the level of trauma you've faced. It's about how long you've been here. It's about how long you've felt displaced, how long you've felt unsafe, what type of support network you have here. But I think it's a great thing for all of us to think about, like, what makes you feel like a place is home? What makes you feel like you are secure? What makes you feel like you belong and are welcomed? We had somebody in the office on Friday who was saying, I always feel like I have 1 foot there and 1 foot here. And for some people, that's, going to last, that feeling is going to last for the rest of their lives, and that's okay. I don't think that there's any real answer that applies to everybody about what is home. You can have multiple homes. You can feel like you belong in multiple places. It's just about the people you surround yourself with and the support that you have. And I just hope that we can be as welcoming and our immigrants in Berkshire County can be as visible without any repercussions as possible. And I think that's kind of the mission of all of us up here right now.
I agree. I think so too. And I think relocating from one culture to another one is always really hard. And there is never really a final arriving, or you're never done with it. You'll always have at least a toe or something. Yeah. I think back there. For me, it's not that, hasn't been that long, only 4.5 years. But before me, my parents had done it to the country that I was growing up in. So I feel like I'm already, the second generation, and my kids will be the third generation growing up with not having one home, not having one culture, but having several. And I hope, I think it was easier for me than for my parents, and I hope that for my kids it will be easier, and they will feel more of a home, and they will feel more belonging, and less trauma from all the generations before them, and that, like, if each of us, each generation is healing a little bit, we're handing this on, and the next generation has, I think, better ability and skills and a better beginning and start to do better, to feel more at home. Yeah.
I just want to add a couple of things, and then we'll do, I think, engagement with the arts. Yeah. And I think Norman Rockwell's Golden Rule image is incredibly inspiring, recognizing that we are a nation of immigrants and always have been. But I would say I'm particularly inspired knowing that there are people in our community doing this brilliant work with deep commitment and feeling and being connected.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to your to the immigration story. So I've been here over 40 years, and I guess I felt pretty safe until, the election. My daughter, born in this country, married a man from Colombia. He's a doctor, she's a doctor. They have a little granddaughter born in this country. They're afraid with the election because of for their little girl, and I'm saying, well, how can you be so worried? She's born here, but it's like you said with your son. They did detain a girl to question because his whole family, his mother is still in Colombia, his family is there. There's still that fear that could our daughter be detained and questioned? Could anything happen because her cousins or someone is visiting or something from Colombia? So it is a worrisome thing, this next election. I hope things finally sort themselves out, because I don't want to see my daughter worried about that. I thought that, with my mother moving here, myself, that finally all these years that you can stop worrying. It's far, but no, it's crazy.